Ladies and gentlemen, Deep Depth episode 10. We have a very special episode today. This is like my first time I'm ever doing an episode with a fellow content creator from a couple states away. Ladies and gentlemen, very special guest, host of the MightyBrad podcast, which you can check out on YouTube and Spotify, Bradly Glantz. Bradly, welcome to Deep Depth, here where we dive into the deep end of life. How are you doing, my friend?
Thanks so much for having me, brother. I'm doing quite well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good in positive spirits. It's good weather out here in Chicago. Can't complain. It's usually bipolar, but spring is around the corner. We'll take spring and summer any day over the brutal winter. How about you? How's the weather out there?
Yeah, it's not bad today. Kind of sunny. A little under 50, but not as bad as usual.
Sweet, man. Sweet. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's get right into it, man. There's so much going on in the world right now, man. So much. I don't want to get into first off, you have unfortunately sad wars going on, genocides going on, camps going on, labor camps across the world. And then you look at the Western culture where we live, and there's so much nonsense going on in today's generation, which we have to dive into. And with our two, powerful minds for young individuals, we'll definitely chop it up straight into it. So one of the things that really came up to mind for me in today's time is failure. And the word failure to me is just very interesting to me, because I remember back in the day I used to be afraid of it all the time, especially when I started this podcast. I'm like, man, is anyone gonna listen to me? Is anyone gonna subscribe to me? How many likes am I gonna get? And then I was just fearing failure constantly, and I was gonna ask you, I wanted to get your 2 cents on this. What are the common reasons people fear failure, and how does fear manifest people's lives in today's society?
I would argue that the fear of failure is a learned behavior. I believe scientifically we're born with two fears. I think one of them is falling, one of them might be losing your mother, something like that. But anyway, all of our other fears in life are learned conditioning, programming from when we were a child, from our teenage years to whatever age we are now. And so every experience that we have, especially when we're younger, there's this concept called subconscious programming, where typically between the age that right when you're born till age around 7, maybe a little bit later, we are in a different brain wave. And so it's called theta, I believe. And we are basically just downloading programs, right? It's hard to remember memories from there because it was just, we were downloading it. We weren't really that conscious beings, but we're aware of the world now. But anyway, we were programmed with all these things. And a lot of these fears of failure come from our culture, our conditioning, what society tells us, what our parents tell us, what people from school tell us, all this combined, right? And so a lot of the times perfection doesn't exist, right? But we are a lot of the time trying to strive for it. A lot of this imperfection, which is essentially just life, manifests itself because we're not perfect, and we will continue to make mistakes. But the point is, the reason we fear this failure is because other people told us when we were, let's say, 10 years old. We came home, and if we got below an A plus on our test, your mom would tell you weren't good enough, and now you're afraid of failing, right? And what we have to understand, especially in our older age now, is that, at least for me, I don't know about for you, the most important lessons and gold nuggets that I have gotten from my life experience so far have came from when I failed, when I made a mistake, when I fell on my face,
Absolutely.
etc. And so every single failure that we have and good experience, there's a lesson within there. And a lot of us like to fail and ignore that lesson. But if we can dig into all of our past experiences and what we're going through now, or something we think we failed at, and take that lesson so that we don't fail again, that's the best thing you can do. And also, I'm not a huge believer in the word of failure, in the sense, I don't think you truly fail unless you go for something, you fall in a pitfall, and you just give up. If you give up, then you fail. But if you make a mistake or you get set back, but you keep going, it's not failure.
And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty. And unfortunately in today's, I just feel like in today's school system, especially, in America, we're just, how do I put it this way? We don't teach enough about life as we should. It's more so of paperwork, sheets. Oh, this is a career you should pursue. You should chase after this job. But you don't really go into the mental, how do I say, mental health aspect of like, living life. Because sometimes when people like, let's say like, fail a big exam or they don't get like that big position of job, they just feel really down on themselves. And like how you said, you learn your biggest lessons from failures. Same here. Like I'm not sharing our story. Like 2 years ago, I was into basketball a lot. Loved playing basketball. I was trying to, play for a small team, my home country of Bosnia in Europe. But then, unfortunately, tore my ACL, tore my MCL. And what led up to that injury was I had a little minor injury. I remember I had like a little knee sprain. The doctor's like, 2-3 weeks will be good. And then, but I remember he said, like, look, in 2-3 weeks' time, you're not going to be exactly 100, so don't rush straight into it. I was so eager to play. I obviously rushed back into it, then tore my ligaments. And then, basically that was the end of basketball there. And I had to, start a new podcast. I started my podcast, and that's, failure. And I remember I felt depressed, sad, like, man, I'm not going to make basketball. I'm not going to make my aspirations. I felt super down. But then like something like spoke to me, like I guess you could say my subconscious, like, you know what? You didn't make basketball, but maybe there's like another path that will open up for you. And I think a lot of people nowadays need to just think about that more. And we'll get into this subject, which kind of correlates with this topic. A lot of people nowadays look at social media and like, oh, I want to be exactly like this person, like let me do what they want to do, but they don't exactly like think it through because they also had to go through the mud. Those people that we look up to social media.
Yeah, the issue is it's not an issue, but the way we perceive everything becomes an issue in the sense that we look at somebody who's successful on social media, whatever you define as success, whether it's $1 million, having a nice car, being spiritually content. We look up to these people and we think that they just had it handed to them and they just had it. And maybe there are a few people out there who have, but the majority of people, like you were just referencing, they started somewhere. They may have started exactly where you were, or maybe even in a worse position. And so for us to come out here and say, well, I can never do it, they just had it handed to them, that is a sure way to be average and live a life that you are going to enjoy. And to strive to be normal is not optimal for human conditioning. And what I mean by that is the average American is overweight, divorced, has less than $1,000 in their bank account. If you're striving to be normal, then you're striving to live an unhappy life. And why would we want to do that? Now, these people that we're looking up to that are successful on social media, the best thing that you can do is look up to them and figure out the steps that they took to get to where they are. And maybe you can emulate some of those things. Maybe you can even just steal some ideas from what they did and incorporate it into your own life. And but people don't like to do this, right? People like to look at these people who are successful and say, well, they just had a hand with them, or I'm never going to be able to do that, or whatever the excuses, or they're on steroids, or whatever the case is, right? And so much of the time, it's easier for us to complain about people doing better than us. Whereas if we just opened our mind a little bit and changed our perspective and said, hey, what can I learn from this person? You would be a lot more successful yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that. 100% agree with that. And, you know, I have a few friends who are like, oh, I want to be, exactly like, this artist and stuff like that. Well, you gotta get to grinding. It's not like they were just sitting around and some dude in a nice suit came up to their house, like, hey, I have a record deal for you, Like, no, they obviously had to take some steps. And that's another thing I feel like what sucks nowadays is people expect the opportunity to be handed rather for it than to not like be hard earned. For me, I always told someone like, I'm not sharing this like life lesson out. I remember like my pops was like, hey, look, and once you graduate college and once you get everything done, I want to give you some money, as like congratulations, stuff like that. I'm like, Pa, you hold that to yourself. That's the money you earned. I'm grateful. If I was 14 years old for an allowance, hey, bless, I'll take it. But I'm a grown man now. You put that money to yourselves towards towards a future house, whatever you're trying to get at, and then I'll repay you. Because at the end of the day, I don't like when something is handed to me. I want it. I want to be like it's action earned. And yeah, I did graduate. I'm working hard at college. Once I do graduate college, in a sense, I earn it. But that still sort of feels like a handout. I want it like everything to be like hard earned. I think in today's time, especially with the young generation, it's now more of like handed opportunities, connections. A dad might know, a buddy of his that works for a corporation. So they just slide right into the company or into the 9 to 5 job. it's a lot of those nowadays. It's a lot of opportunities being handed. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing, but I think to riff on your point, it can be a way to feel unfulfilled in the long term. Like if you have a lot of things handed to you and you don't work for yourself for the money that you're making or whatever you're succeeding in, there's going to be 8 times out of 10 a feeling of lack within yourself because you're going to feel like a fraud. It's like, well, this is the imposter syndrome. And a lot of people deal with this, whether it's, in any area of life. It's like, do I deserve this? Right. And it's like, well, did you put in the work? Yeah, of course you deserve it. Did you have it completely handed to you and you didn't work for it? Doesn't necessarily mean you don't deserve it, but maybe you don't. Right. And this is open to interpretation, but I think the point is that we need to create opportunities for ourselves. You mentioned at the start of what you were talking about of we're expecting people to come and hand opportunities to us, and we to take it into the mental health perspective. Our life sucks. We feel depressed. We feel unfulfilled. We feel lost, and we sit there and we continue to distract ourselves and just consume pleasurable things, not try and better ourselves. And we expect somebody to just come along and say, here's my hand, touch my hand, I'll lift you up and everything will be fine. We have this idea that somebody is going to come and save us, and they're not, right? It's just you. And I'm not saying there's never going to be anyone who comes in your family or friends that want to help you. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. But if we look statistically at most people and most young men who are depressed and they feel like their life sucks, nobody's coming to save them. They stay the same throughout their late teenage years, 20s, 30s. They're in their 40s living in their mom's basement and they're playing video games. And this is what life is coming to for a lot of men. And of course, not only is this not healthy for society and advancement in life, but your reality just sucks.
Absolutely, man. I 1 billion% agree with you. I 1 billion% agree with you. And I was gonna to throw like another question in this. Is the portrayal of excessive wealth in today's media and popular culture in today's time, does that create unrealistic expectations and dissatisfaction in today's society? Do you think like when we go on social media and like we see like all these cars and jewelry, like, oh my God, I want that? And do you think that's just too much nowadays to look at? Shouldn't we not look at sometimes like the wealth and just more so focus on ourselves?
I think making money can be a fantastic tool, and the amount of money that you want to make in your life depends on what type of life you want to live. Because, you could make $40,000 a year, let's say, and you enjoy living in a very small place and you enjoy the simple things in life. Some other people want to go on extravagant adventures and, buy big houses. I don't think either one of them is wrong. I think we just have to figure out what is right for us and what we deem as success and not what society has told us is successful. But to agree with your point in this sense, we're looking at it way too much, and we think if we don't have that, then we're not content and life can never be good enough, which of course is completely false. And I would also say that I think for a lot of the people that are completely depending on money and buying materialistic items for your happiness, you will spend a lot of time climbing the ladder. And once you get there, you will realize you have done nothing but waste your time. And now across that journey, you may have this realization of, getting religious or getting involved in spiritual wealth and developing a good philosophy on life. And then maybe you end up making a lot of money, realizing it's not for you, and then you figure out something else I like. For example, I had a man named Jason Picard on my podcast, 26 years old. He's making millions of dollars on Wall Street, and he explains how he paradoxically felt broke because his mental health was going down the drain. He was super overweight, had no spiritual wealth in his life, and so he realized that money wasn't the answer. Money is a great tool, but he realized that if you like, for example, even though it's not always this black and white, if you have money but nothing else, it doesn't matter, right? And so what some people will do is people will sacrifice their health, their relationships to reach a financial goal. and then their mental health and their relationships will be so far gone down the drain that they'll just spend the money they made trying to get their mental health back and visiting the hospital and making themselves better, right? And so to that degree, it's like, well, what's the point? But in the grand conversation, whatever amount of money that you want to make is your decision to make, and what you're going to do with that, hopefully it's going to be something positive. And I think materialistic items can definitely be an addition to people's lives, and they can be cool. It could be cool to have a nice car, depending on why you want the car. Do you want the car because you're genuinely a car guy and you love cars, or you want the Ferrari because you want to impress everybody from high school? It's like there's different sides to this, right? And so you just have to figure out where you're at and make sure your goals align with your values, and make sure you actually have values for yourself, because if you don't have values for yourself, then you're going to want to make a lot of money so you can buy the Ferrari to impress everyone. And then also realize you're going to do that to finally get people to be impressed by you. And then you're also going to realize after you get it that people don't really give a shit about you, and they're not impressed by you. And so, I did a podcast with a man named Chase, and he's a coach. And
great podcast, by the way. I saw that. I watched it.
Oh, awesome. So he was talking about how people, when they buy a Ferrari or a very nice car, nobody's looking at the driver. They're just looking at the nice car. So it's like, you're buying this car to impress everyone. Everyone's just looking at your nice car. No one cares about you. And it's like, the point of this is that whatever you want to do with your life, make sure it's for you and not for other people, because other people don't really care.
Exactly. Oh my God. 1 trillion% agree, because there's a reason why you'll see on YouTube, like, as a joke, you'll see like those, now most of them will probably be fake. You'll see those gold digger pranks. And there is some truth behind it. There are people that, like you said, they'll just look at the car and ignore the driver. Like, seriously, they'll look at the car, like the car drive by itself. They don't even look at the driver inside of it. I remember I watched this one sports stream of a soccer player who plays for Bayern Munich, Alphonso Davies. And I remember, I don't know, we just started to sort of break down the streams. Like, ever since I became, popular soccer, like, I just feel like I'm missing some stuff. I feel like I'm missing some, like, happiness outside of soccer. And what's crazy is, like, you'll go into Instagram comments, you'll go to Facebook, and you'll see, like, in the comment section, like, people saying, like, the most dumbest, ignorant comments, like, oh my God, you have millions of dollars, you're playing professional sports, you should be happy. Well, why aren't you not happy? And like you said, money doesn't buy happiness. It just doesn't. Would $1 billion falling from the sky make me happy? 100%. I'd be, oh my God, look at all this money. But that money is not going to solve some of the empty issues I have. And like you said, spiritual wealth, there's nothing better than that. And I always encourage people, like, it doesn't matter what religion you believe in, go after some spiritual faith. Like, for real, every religion has, a purpose behind it. Money, there isn't a true purpose behind money. There's more purpose in religion and other aspects of life, more so than money. Money comes and goes. Like, after this life, we don't know what comes next. Whatever you believe there's an afterlife, whether you believe we're going to be just stuck 6 feet under, we truly don't know until that day comes. And I'll never forget, like, one of the priests at my mosque was like, we're not taking this money with us. We're not, like, when we pass away, it's not like when we get buried, it's like, all right, well, here's Tariq's savings, here's Bradley's savings, we're gonna throw into the casket. Here we go. We're gonna go with them. It's not. It's gonna stay outside. It's probably gonna be passed down to our future family members, and that's what's unfortunate nowadays. You have this young generation, this notion where it's like, oh, if I have money, I'll be fine. I could invest towards physical therapy, this and that. Money, you could invest money all you want, but it's just not going to be the same as you investing your natural own time for yourself as a human being.
Yeah, there's a wonderful balance that needs to be equated in our lives between both of those factors, because obviously you need money to live and survive and thrive in some cases, but it's like we were saying before, without the illusion that money is going to solve your feeling of insecurity is an illusion. It will only probably make it more potent. You'll use that money, you're insecure about yourself, you care about what others think. Similar to the example before, you'll use all that newfound money to buy things, and it's not gonna short term, you may feel good about it, but long term, you're not going to feel satisfied.
Agreed, man. Agreed. And going to like the next topic, that's somewhat like that how we were talking about, celebrity culture and stuff like that. I think one of the main issues in today's Western culture, with America, Canada, we're glorifying the wrong things in today's time. And the question I was going to get into, should we reevaluate the glorification of celebrity culture and its impact on today's society with their values and aspirations? The reason why I ask this is because you now see nowadays female artists twerking in churches. You'll see people singing more about the devil, and now they're glorifying the devil. They're glorifying, whether you they're glorifying, certain books you shouldn't read at a young age in California. Now the state of California, they're like, oh, we're now gonna, release books where you can read about how you can be, part of the LGBTQ community as early as third grade, and people are glorifying that. Why do you think in today's time we're glorifying all these things that would not be glorified back in the day? My parents, they weren't born and raised in America. They came from abroad, from Europe. They came from a former country known as Yugoslavia, and now, independent country, of Bosnia, and all the other countries broke off. But my pops told me, like, back in the day, all of what's going on right now would be rejected back in the 90s, would be rejected in the 80s, even the early 2000s. So why is it now in today's time? Could it be social media? Could it be how artists and certain influencers push the idea? Why is it we're glorifying the wrong things instead of the right things?
Well, I would say, to generally answer that, there's an agenda from the government and the people who run the world, and that agenda is to not allow people to explore their best version of themselves and become the most intelligent. It's, well, we want to shift the culture, we want to stir up this controversy, and they've proven time and time again that they can do that. They influence the culture. You instill a rapper to say this and say these lyrics. Well, now everybody in every 17-year-old girl and guy is bouncing at the club to that song, right? And I have always gone back to, everything is connected. The school system is involved in, the degeneracy to a point, you could say. And there's school teaches us school teaches us what to think and not how to think, right? We've all heard this before. And the purpose of that is so that we don't live our best lives possible. It wouldn't benefit the government for everyone to live their best lives possible, because society wouldn't be the way it is now. And so, yeah, we're glorifying a lot of things that aren't essential to thriving. And so it's like the whole, I love this celebrity, I'm obsessed with this person, I love the Kardashians. My perspective is, you can like your things, you can like people, but I think it's bullshit. And what I mean by that is, what you watching the Kardashians and observing their life, what is that doing for you? Right? It's like, if you can do that 30 minutes a night and, do it to unwind from work, hey, do your thing. But I'm always trying to reach the next goal. I'm always trying to make my life better and help others. Me watching the Kardashians is not going to help me do that. It's also probably going to take me away from doing that.
Zero benefit. Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's not me saying that you can't ever watch TV or take time off. That's not me saying that. It is me saying that some of us get so obsessed with these people that have nothing to do with our lives that we focus more on them than we do on ourselves. And that is an issue.
I agree. And it's funny enough, us being now part of the media influencers, I see it as two sides. I see it as meaningful content and meaningless content. So I've seen, my friends, they'll scroll through YouTube shorts and TikToks of the most dumbest shit, and it just does not benefit you. Like, just spending hours and hours going through, oh my God, look what Kim fell down the stairs. Oh my God, Kim fell down the stairs. And it's just like, why are we looking at things like this? Like, I'd rather us look at shorts, like, for example, like if I'm scrolling through Instagram, I see one of your shorts talking about, accepting reality, or someone will scroll through one of my podcast reels and be like, oh wow, he's talking about, how to bounce back, from adversity and stuff like that. Nowadays, people are focusing their attentions on the wrong things instead of the right things. And I think how you said, the school system being involved, I agree. You mentioning, Degeneracy, 300% agree. There are these little factors that really play in, and it's very scary. I'm not sharing this out, and I was going to ask you this question. If you've traveled often around the world, because for me, whenever I go to Europe, it's completely different mindset out there. Like my cousins out there, it's literally school, work, help out with the family, and then figure out what day is next. Over here in the United States, in the Western culture, it's more so of a consistent basis of work or stay home and collect a check from the government, do a little bit of help around the house, and then let's go drink, let's have fun, let's probably smoke, two completely different cultures. So if you haven't traveled one day, if you haven't traveled yet to Europe, I seriously recommend it because and like it's very random to throw out there, but the reason why I'm throwing it out there is because like when you actually evaluate the outside world outside of the Western culture, it's completely different. It really is. And we look at ourselves right now in a society where we're looking at the wrong things instead of the right things.
Yeah, I mean the West is very interesting, and there's also the argument that I've heard and have explored a little bit of how religion is dying over here. Whether it's religion or any spiritual knowledge or figuring out a philosophy for how to
Agreed.
live your life, this isn't something that people think about. I think a huge goal in people's general minds and our cultures, how can I be happy? And people don't understand that chasing the pleasurable things in life 24/7 isn't going to make them happy. You chase one thing, you get drunk, you get high, you hook up with someone, et cetera, et cetera. You do this all the time, and you eventually, I say, because some takes some people 10 years to realize this, you eventually realize that it has done nothing for you. And I'm not saying that you can't ever do these things, and I'm gonna say you're a bad person for doing it. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you spend too much time doing these types of things. Not only does your mental health go down the drain, but you're not in fulfilling relationships. You're not in a fulfilling relationship with yourself. You don't even have any goals. You don't know what you're doing with your life. You're kind of just here doing stuff because everyone told you to do this. It's like, how many people, and this isn't me bashing on college as an institution, how many people are in college that are just there because, all right, yeah, I'm just here. And it's like college can be a good place for a lot of people to figure things out. But the statistic, for example, is over 70% of people who graduate college get a job or get into a business or do whatever the career is. It has nothing to do with what they majored in college. And so it's like this is showing that there's something wrong here, and the culture isn't allowing us to be the best version of ourselves or feel fulfilled or content with our life. This approach of hedonism, which is essentially the philosophy of just chasing pleasurable things, you end up feeling quite lonely and purposeless, especially as a man. I would imagine women feel a similar way, but I can't speak for them obviously because I'm not a woman. But I know a lot how men think, and if we are purposeless, we chase pleasure. A man who lacks purpose chases pleasure, and we do this to distract ourselves from our reality and hopefully make us feel okay, and it never does.
I agree. I agree with you. And one more thing I was going to add is like how you say, chasing pleasurable things. I'll bring up, a common popular drug, which now is being more legalized in more states, marijuana. People, and look, I'm not bashing anyone that does it, not at all. Same thing with drinking, not bashing anyone, not bashing anyone. If you feel like you want to unwind every once in a while, cool, go ahead. But nowadays you'll have like some of these younger generational folks. It's like, oh, marijuana has so many medical benefits, that's why I smoke every day. That's not the reason why you smoke every day. The reason why you smoke every day, is because you feel sad. And I've seen it before. I've seen it firsthand. Like, I've done research on the drug itself. And one of the things I found out in my research is, the key reason, for marijuana, it helps with mental health, it helps with sadness, helps with stress. And there are some positive studies about it. But on the other hand, you have the excessive use. And this is where I was going to get into. The more you actually use it, yes, you might feel less depressed, but guess what? Now you're feeling so comfortable off that drug, you're now content with the situation you're living in. And you may not even realize it. And that's the crazy thing. So you feel like, oh man, I'm not worried about a single thing. I feel great right now. Let me light this up. You feel great because of that. You're like, if you weren't, you would be like, damn, what am I doing? And I just think right now, today's time, and it's only going to get scarier with how everything, is getting pushed. And my biggest advice, to young men like us, to all around, is like you said, we shouldn't be chasing pleasure. We shouldn't be chasing things that keeps us, content. And yes, there are things that's going to be hard to reach, like, certain goals and stuff. And not everything we wish for comes true, but everything we start to think about starts with a wish. And we can't be just, wishing for the wrong things in life and the pleasurable things. Should be wishing for the right things in life.
Yeah, and I know everybody will make the argument of, oh, well, marijuana is not addictive, and I suppose some of the science backs up that it doesn't have addictive properties, but I know plenty of people in my personal life and people that I have talked to that are very addicted and cannot eat a meal without being high, right? And it's like, this is a problem. And
very sad. Sorry.
and me saying this isn't saying that marijuana is just bad, but I will also say, hot take, I think the legalization of this is a giant psyop, and this is just going to create a plethora of problems. Because our generation is already basically screwed with how our attention spans are completely down the drain, and how we can't focus on something purposeful for more than 5 minutes at a time without picking up our phones. But this is just going to make things worse. And obviously, like you said before, people are like, oh, marijuana has benefits. That's right. That's not why you're using it. You're using it to escape your reality, to feel good, and maybe have a good time. But the problem is people end up doing this all the time. And, you escape your reality long enough, it starts to become your new reality. And then if you were ever broken out of that new reality, which is kind of your fake reality, you're going to realize that your life kind of sucks and you're going to be in a pretty dark place.
Agreed, man. And how you said the attention span, that's one thing, like, me and my brother have talked about a lot with a lot of people nowadays. The attention span is just at its all-time lowest. And there's a reason why nowadays, like back in the day, like when shorts first came out, like YouTube, like, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, it was just regular reels. You could just watch the video. There is a reason why influencers like us now are basically forced to add captions, forced to add freaking GTA gameplays of a car driving up and down the fucking highway. There's a reason for that. It's because us people, we just can't watch the video by itself. We have to see those green bolded letters of what we're saying. We have to see a car going up and down the driveway. It is dumb, and it sounds sort of hypocritical because we have to edit like that now. We have to edit like that now because those are the cards that we've been dealt with, and it's concerning. Like you said, it's very concerning. Especially, I'm glad you mentioned the attention span because, man, like TikTok especially, it's just, man, like so many pros and cons behind that.
Yeah, and I feel even worse for the generation below us, because they're growing up getting an iPad and a phone at 3 years old and getting sucked in. And it's like, I'm gonna make the bold claim of saying our brain cells are getting destroyed. And by the time these 3-year-old kids are 15, they're gonna be idiots, right? And we're already seeing the effects of us not being able to think for ourselves now. It's only going to be getting worse. And a lot of people would argue that this is the downfall of our society. I wouldn't go as far to say that, but I would say that there are definitely some signs indicating that.
Agreed. And to move on right along, one of the next things I want to get into is the topic of reality, which you and me discussed about setting this up. What does it mean to you when it comes to accepting reality, and why is it important for us to accept reality when it comes to personal growth and our personal well-being?
Well, the most important realization that you can have in your first step or beginning your personal development journey is that, which is accepting the reality you're in right now, because there's often times where we can be internally really dissatisfied for a plethora of reasons, whether you think you're overweight or you're too skinny, or this is wrong with your mental health, you have this limiting belief. And, it's like, well, where do I start? Right. And it's like, it's easy to want to fix everything at once, but we have to start small. And this starts with looking in the mirror and just analyzing exactly where you are now. Take out a piece of paper. This is how I feel about myself. This is how I view myself. This is how I view my body. This is blah, blah, blah. And then on the next page, this is where I would like to be in a year from now. And then to bridge the gap between those two things, what are some goals and some steps that I can set up that are going to bridge that gap and allow me to cross that bridge and enter that new reality of the more content person with my life, the version of me with better mental health, with a better body, with a better everything, right? And I've just said it before, we have to start small, because oftentimes we could want to change all of this at once, and we incorporate, okay, I'm going to do these 10 things today, and you don't end up getting those 10 things done inevitably, because it's a lot of work to start getting done from doing nothing your entire life before. So and there's a lot of shame sometimes. Shame is one of the worst feelings that you can experience, and it's pretty much a garbage emotion in the sense of like we should just throw it out the window. There's no reason to feel shameful for what you have or haven't done in your past. You are where you are now, and we just have to accept that and love you. And so to get into this, there's a lot of talk about loving yourself and accepting yourself for who you are, and I agree with that as a concept and as an action, in the sense of, well, you feel like I'm too skinny, or I feel like I'm overweight, I feel like my mental health is horrible. Accept yourself where you are now and care about yourself and love yourself for this version of you now. But obviously you have internally struggles, and like, oh, I don't want to be fat anymore, I don't want to be this skinny, or I want my mental health to be better. And so we have to bridge the gap between these things by actually taking steps in reality to make it better, and not actually just saying, well, it's okay that I'm fat and I'm not going to try and lose weight, right? Because the problem with that is, right, there's this huge culture nowadays of it's okay to be overweight, and it's fine, right? And the reality of it, scientifically based, is it's not fine. And this is not me saying that you're not worthy as a human being if you're fat, et cetera, et cetera. You 100% are. But I would say, and now I've never been overweight, but I've been very skinny at one point. I was just skin and bones. And I know from that experience, you could kind of see those as two polar opposites. I felt very insecure within myself. And, me getting in the gym for the first time was difficult. Point is, to lead it back, this feeling of shame, whereas like I'm too fat, it's hard to start, or I'm too skinny, it's too hard to start to get in the gym, for example, or start to go running or walking. It's not too late, and there's no step too small. It's like sometimes we can feel shame of taking the smallest step possible of just getting in the gym for the first time. The gym, for example, nobody really cares about what you're doing or not doing. In fact, I would say that if I see a very overweight person in my gym, I look at them and I say, good for them. They are where they are right now, and they're trying to better themselves. I guarantee you 99% of people who are looking at you in the gym when you're overweight aren't saying, oh, look at that guy, he's so fat. It's like, good for them. They're trying to make their life a better place. Because the gym, for example, and I'm not saying there's never any assholes at the gym, because of course there's negative people everywhere, but most of the people there are pretty supportive. And it's like, if you
Right.
if you were insecure about yourself and you went up to someone who has your dream body, for example, and just asked them like, hey, how'd you get here? Or it's like, hey, can you help me? I'm not sure if I'm doing this exercise right. Can you spot me, or can you show me how to do this? Most people like, yeah, absolutely, right, and they'd be happy to do it and happy to tell you their story and give you advice and pointers and stuff. So the world is not as negative as a place as we like to think it is, and we think everyone's out to get us when they're really not. Everyone's living in their own world, and if you ask for help, most people are willing to give it.
I Beautifully well said, and I love the gym as a great example, because my first time going to the gym, like how you said, listing 10 things at a time, that was me my first time going to the gym. All right, I'm gonna hit the bench, I'm gonna hit the treadmill, I'm gonna get on the bike, I'm gonna get on this, like I was doing all these things, and like mid-workout I'm dead, I'm gassed, and I'm just like, oh my god. And I started to feel this self-shame. But then as soon as I got home from that first day of gym, I'm like, you know what, I didn't reach all my 10 steps, but damn, did it feel good. I at least got to reach one of them. And I start to use that as like a building block. And like I said, the gym is a great example. Like when I first went in there, I saw all those eyes. And like my technique was awkward. I'm like, oh my god, that guy who has like big muscular arms, he's probably thinking, what is this goof doing? No, like how you said, they're probably thinking, you know what? Good for them. Because at one point, those people we're thinking about or looking at the gym were in the same shoes that we started at when we started to go to the gym. And for me, I wasn't, skin and bones. I was necessarily chubby. I was more of like in the middle, but I still wanted to like get in the gym just to feel active, just to get my brain right, just to, feel great, with my daily routine. And what sucks now is I just feel everything in the outside world. I think the reason why it's viewed negative is because I feel like social media has played like a big effect in positive ways, but also in a lot of negative ways, to where people like just see certain things and they just get discouraged by it very, very easily. And it goes back, a little bit about failure earlier. Just go in there, do what you can do, and be proud. And I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter how small it is. Like if you did something and you feel like it was the right step, like be proud. Like there was someone I knew, like they were overweight, and they were starting to lose weight, and they were struggling to run like a whole mile straight. I'm like, look, if you can't run a whole mile straight, just start running like at least a half. Just run for like 5-10 minutes at a time, and then build up. Just be proud of whatever little step you can take. And I think that's the best message, like guys like us and other, positive influencers out there, we have to push out more and more is, hey, reality is, yes, life can be a pain in the ass, but there's a reason. Like if we had a good day every day, we wouldn't learn about a single shit about the real world. We just wouldn't. There's a reason why some of these like millionaires and athletes, like I pointed out earlier, some of them are sad because maybe for some of them, they probably didn't experience enough obstacles in their life. So to them, just like, wow, I had it easy. Like I didn't like, and we have to look at it through that lens point more. So I 100% agree with you what you said, and I think that's the most important message. We can't be thinking about life as I gotta have a good day every day. For me now, when I wake up, and I also do self journal logs like every night. For me now, when I wake up, I'm not. I don't remain too optimistic. I used to be optimistic back in the day. I'm like, I want to have a great day every day. Now when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, look, I aim to have a good day, but if something happens that doesn't go into my favor, just keep moving forward. And like the great, Carl Weathers, the great late actor, once said, there is no tomorrow. Live every day like it's your last. Do what you can do. And that's what we're supposed to do in today's time, and not necessarily just let reality of, oh man, life sucks, and let that beat us up. No, just go out there and conquer. Just conquer.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things that are within our control that we sometimes can't see. There's a lot of stuff that we can do to make our life a better place, but it's easier for us to say, "Oh, no, it's not in my reality. It's not possible for me to do it." But if you look small enough, right? Because maybe you're looking too big right now. Have those big goals in mind, but also look on look onto the small steps and the small concepts so that you can incorporate in your life today. And maybe just introduce a new habit. It takes 5 minutes of your time, right? And it's like, well, you could argue, well, 5 minutes is not enough, or 5 minutes is nothing. Five is more than zero, so you're doing something, and you got to give yourself credit for that.
Absolutely, I agree. And to move on along, that sort of relates with with the world of reality. And I just feel like in today's time, in today's society, I think we lack of compassion as communities, in the Western culture. So I was going to ask you, in what ways can a lack of compassion not only affect your personal relationship, but business relationships, and even with ourselves, even with ourselves?
That's a great question. Compassion. Well, you got to think about it. If you can't be supportive of yourself, then obviously you're not going to be supportive of other people to a large extent. And also, there's such a competitive nature behind so many as human beings to a degree, but also in our culture of like, I need to be better than this person and this person, and if they're better than me, I need to bring them down. This is the unfortunate philosophy of a lot of people in our Western world, is that, well, this person's doing better than me. Well, they just had it handed to them, or how can I bring them down, or how can I get there without having to put any time or work into it or build any relationships? And for the compassion aspect, I mean, so many of us just are pretty selfish and don't care about other people. And every human being is selfish to a degree. And I would say it's good to be selfish, right? It's good to fill your own cup first. It's good to focus on yourself, because when you focus on yourself, then you become better. Then you can help other people. If your life is shit, you can't you can't help someone else make their life better. So we have to focus on ourselves and we have to be selfish. But there is also a degree of selfishness of, you could go to the extent of saying narcissistic. I think the idea, obviously narcissism is like a psychological disorder, but you know, the idea of narcissism, of focusing on yourself and lacking compassion for other people and, you know, disregarding everyone else, this can be a destructive mindset to embody, and a lot of people do nowadays. And so what we need to do is really focus on ourselves and what we do with ourselves. We need to help other people, because I think deep down everybody wants to help other people, but when you're in a dark place, it's hard to do that, and it's easier to try and bring others down. And this is what a lot of people do. A lot of people lack compassion for somebody who has a different political belief than them, or you know, scientific belief or religious belief, or whatever the case is, or anything on a smaller scale. People lack so much compassion for the other person that they get in a frenzy if somebody disagrees with you. And my argument for that is, if you get so pissed off at somebody for having a different belief than you, you don't even fully believe what you think you do and what you're arguing for. Because if you did, you'd be okay with the other person, you know, disagreeing with you, and you'd also, if you're secure in your beliefs, seek to understand why they believe that what they believe. Like, yes, in the back of your mind, maybe you want to convince them or something, but if you can just go in with just laying out what you believe and genuinely listen to the other person, because most of the time they have something to offer you in terms of value, even if it's not going to change your belief. But if you can seek to understand someone's different point of view, you know, you're on this side and they're on that side. If you actually listen to them, you might not change your belief, and that's not the goal of this. But they might say a few things, and you'd be like, huh, I never thought about it that before. And maybe there's a lesson or two there that you can take and apply to your life, right? And we've created this culture where if you disagree with me, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to yell at you and tell you you're wrong and you're a bad person. And the issue with that is that is how you collapse society and create a miserable life for yourself. Because, I mean, can we genuinely sit here and say that everybody's going around, you know, criticizing people and saying everyone's an asshole and the world sucks? You really think those people are happy? That person where you're trying to engage in a civil conversation with them in a civil disagreement, and they start yelling at me, you think they're happy? They're not, right? And so if you can understand this and then have compassion for that person, that they aren't in a good place, and also not take it personally, right? Now, take things personally where it's due and hold yourself accountable, because you make mistakes. But there's a lot of things that people may portray or get insulted by of something you say, or get mad, whereas it's not necessarily what you said, it's just how they reacted to it. And this is something that we need to all be more aware of. And this lack of compassion creates a miserable life for ourselves. And obviously you can't build any genuine relationships with people if you don't actually care about them, and you're just in the relationship for your personal gain. It's inevitably at one point or another going to end miserably, and you'll always be chasing things in your life for your own personal gratification, and you won't be helping other people. And then in the long run, you won't be helping yourself, because you'll end up that person who's 50, 60, 70 years old, completely alone, not because you ended up living longer than a lot of other people, but because you unconsciously, most likely, just destroyed all of your relationships because you were selfish.
I agree. To a degree, it's great to be selfish. You know, I love how you say, fill up your, cup of water first, take care of yourself first, and then, worry about others. And I think one of the biggest things nowadays, and I want to dive into, how people just, disagree with each other. You're right, I'm wrong. And at the end of the day, I think that gets misconceived a lot. And for me, I think that's the beauty of it. We're not supposed to agree all the time, and we're supposed to show more compassion in the sense that, hey, you and I just had a conversation. I learned something about you. You learned something about me. We may not agree, but I know who you are. You now know who I am. And I remember I said this in one of my previous episodes. I'd rather you be a legit fucking asshole to me than you to be pretending to be a nice guy. And I say that because I want you to be authentic. I want you to be you in the real world. Now, I'm not trying to advocate for people out there, to start being a dick. Please don't. But I'd rather you be yourself than you pretending to be something that you're not. And I just think compassion plays such a big role nowadays in today's outside world, in today's Western culture, with ourselves, with other people, and we just have to show more of that. We have to just kind of expand our thought more. Like it, like we would jump. I want to get into politics for a second, but like when people talk about, oh, this president's bad because of this, I don't like them. Well, they might have a reason for why they believe that. So why not sit down with them and talk with them? You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to be buddies with them. Just talk to them. Like maybe dig their brain. Maybe you could learn something that might benefit your life from their life. And that might sound crazy for some like listening to what I'm saying right now. But like you mentioned, like where I'm going at right now, it's just important to show like consistent compassion, not only ourselves with our fellow brothers and sisters in America and around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The concept of not listening to people has plagued so many of our minds, and it only makes things worse. As soon as we can shift the culture and start to actually listen to people, that's how we'll get shit done.
Right on, right on. And today's news media is just a horrible example. Like, for example, like this is why I don't watch Fox News. This is why I don't really watch CNN nowadays, because they'll put out an article and they'll be like, oh, this guy said this. And they don't even actually take the full interview. They took one line out of that just to frame that person to look bad. Now everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to listen to him. Not going to listen to her. Know what their stance is. You don't. You just went on foxfreaking.com to read 2-3 sentences that they took out from a video, and now they're completely, misconceived. And we just have to it only takes a few minutes to sit down with someone. And like I said, we don't have to be buddies. We don't have to get dinner together. We don't have to get coffee. We could just sit on a bench in a park and just look to each other face to face. And I want to ask you, hey, why do you believe yada, yada, yada? I want to know, why do you believe in this? What, and we just don't have too much of that nowadays, unfortunately. We just don't. And from a societal perspective, what are some ways in which we can collectively promote and prioritize compassion as a core value? And what kind of impact might this have on our communities all around America?
Well, the impact that it would have is people's lives would start to get better. And what we were just talking about, you're going to learn, there's this concept of, going into every philosophy that I've adopted into my life, go into every single conversation, assuming that the other person knows something that you do not, because 100% of the time, this will be true. Now, will you necessarily agree with them? Not necessarily, but you're probably going to take something from it, something good or bad. But even if it's good or bad, you're still taking something from it. In terms of how we can incorporate compassion, I think I can't say that the news needs to change, because it's not going to. People need to start to think for themselves. That's what we need to do, because the example you gave about, well, the news painted this person in a negative light from 2 sentences that they pulled from an hour interview, let's say. If you're a viewer of Fox News or CNN and you see that 2-sentence clip from someone and you don't do you just say, oh yeah, I hate that person now, and you don't do your own research, you're an idiot and you're brainwashed, right? And so and this isn't me saying like you're an idiot and you're brainwashed. This is a lot of the time occurring not of any fault of our own. We've been conditioned since we were younger to take the news as truth, or whatever political belief it is, or listen to what this person said, right? But the point is, we are foolish to just take that as truth when someone says it. We need to do our own research. And when we can start to think for ourselves, that's how we can be more compassionate, because a lot of the people who aren't compassionate for other people or care about listening to anyone, we never sought to seek our own beliefs. We've been conditioned through our parents and school and the media of, well, this is what I should believe. And someone said it to you one day, so you're just like, okay, yeah, I believe it, right? But the issue with this is that if you really did your own research, you might come to see that this isn't even actually what you truly believe. And so it's like you could believe something your whole life, but not have any evidence backing it up. And then be like, oh, let me do some research one day, although this is a foreign concept to many people. Let me do some research about this and see if I actually believe it. You see some research studies, you see some different articles, different opinions from both sides. You're like, Huh. Well, I don't actually believe this. This doesn't actually serve me and my beliefs, right? But this is a difficult thing to do because we have a plethora of different beliefs that have been instilled within us, and to organize them and figure out which ones we actually believe takes a lot of time, takes a lot of reflection, and looking yourself in the mirror and saying, well, am I actually stupid for believing this? Maybe I am. I'm not a stupid person, but this might be a stupid belief that I need to change, right? And so if we can be vulnerable, definitely with other people, but even more importantly with ourselves, then that's where the self growth comes. And when you can allow that self growth to occur and think for yourself and adopt your own beliefs, then that's how you start to care about other people's beliefs. Because now you're the person who came from the point of being conditioned and believing these things, but not actually doing your own research. And now you have done your research, so you can understand the people who are still locked into the mindset of, well, I just believe this because I believe it, and they haven't done the research. You can understand where they're coming from, and then potentially try and help them out of it.
I agree with you. 1 billion% I agree with you. It's just we have to think more for ourselves, and like you said, it's not necessarily like how you said, we're not like legit dumb and brainwashed. We were just conditioned through that. We know in school, like, oh, look what happened, in the Scholastic magazine. Look what happened. Like we were just raised like that, through the school system and such. And that's a very interesting point. And I didn't really look at it that way, so I'm glad you brought that up. That definitely has played a big role in today's society. 1 billion% and 1 trillion%, if my add. And now I do want to get to the main event of this episode, something I have yet to discuss with any of my guests yet. Hookup culture, and this is the one I've been looking forward to the most. I wish I had some tea next to me because it's definitely an interesting topic. For me, I'll say this about hookup culture, and I'll shoot my question towards you to see your perspective on it. I just think it's sad nowadays how standards from I'm not gonna and one thing I hate is on social media when I see a guy say, "Oh, girls aren't shit," and then girls say, "Oh, guys aren't shit." And then 20 minutes later, after they share that post on Facebook, Instagram, to go to the club looking for someone, which doesn't make any sense. So, not only just that, I just think nowadays from both sides, I feel standards have been lowered when it comes to scenery of romance. I think there are great women. I think there are great men out there that want a great relationship, that want someone firm, want something long term. But in today's time, what's scary is it just feels like there's a reason. Like I thought about it, there's a reason why now there's so many more dating apps coming out. There's a reason why like OnlyFans now becomes such a big thing, to glorify about. It all connects with one another, and hookup culture now just feels easier to access. And you may think, oh, well, isn't that like a good thing if you're a guy or a girl, like, or even if a girl hearing this, oh, it's not necessarily a good thing. Well, not really, because the whole goal is, for me, when I think of like hooking up or just anything like love related, it's more like sacred. There's a process behind it. It's not just like, oh, you're hot, I think you're cute, let's go for it. That's what we see nowadays. Why is it, do you think we see that? Is it because of some of those factors I mentioned? Like back in the day, I don't have Twitter. I don't like it. I don't like Twitter. Now X, which is dumb. You now look at Twitter, it's so easier to access adult film. Like back in the day, they wouldn't allow posting that, and now you just see that nowadays. TikTok has a lot of similar content like that. Why do you think that possibly has affected hookup culture in today's romance? Why is it that everything is now being lowered when it comes to standards in that circle?
Well, in terms of the culture, which we were largely talking about before, of how celebrities and everyone influences us, they have a huge part in it. And also to bounce off of one of your points that you were making, I'm not a particularly religious, like I'm not a part of a certain religion, but there is a reason as to why sex was forbidden before marriage, whether you believe it's from God in the Bible or not. if we get rid of God for a second, which obviously a lot of people would argue does not even eliminate him from the equation, but let's eliminate God from the equation,
Yeah.
just human beings, there's a reason that people were, saved sex for marriage, because if we look at statistics, for example, the more sex that you have, particularly within, just hookups and not with a specific partner, the more hookups that you engage in, the less likely you are to stay married. And you might look at this and say, oh, well, that's complete bullshit. And I would say, well, look at the divorce rates in our country. It's over 50%. A lot of people who are experts in the field, even though the statistic seems to be sitting at 50 something percent, they argue that doesn't account for everything. It's probably more near like 70%. And so this is very scary. And, there's so many things going on in the background. Like this, our whole culture is surrounded by chasing the pleasure, like we were talking about before. And hooking up with someone grants you a lot of pleasure. I've done it plenty of times in my life, and I will say that from my experience, I did not feel fulfilled after. Right? I hooked up with a bunch of girls, say, oh, it's fun, whatever. And I got to a point where I didn't even enjoy it anymore. And I know people in my personal life who have too. It's like one of my friends, one of my best friends has hooked up with so many girls, and he doesn't do it anymore. He's like, that there's no purpose behind it. There's no
value,
fulfillment, right? And so, everyone can always make the argument of like, sex before marriage and romantic partnership. My standpoint, like right now as we're speaking, is it's fine to do that, but of course I don't come from a particularly religious standpoint. But to eliminate that from the equation, it's just it's so weird and uncomfortable, you could say, and some people would say like, oh, well, you're just insecure for saying this, and I don't agree with that. Some people would say, like, when I see like tons of people just kissing random people, it's like it makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, what's going on here? And obviously, like, I haven't hooked up with 50 girls, nowhere near it, but I did my share with a few people over the past few years, right? And I realized that I was fulfilled, but seeing so many people do it, it's like what's going on here? It's like it's just normal to kiss random people. And like I stumbled upon a short, I believe last night, of some guy. People do all those interviews where it's like a guy will go in to kiss a girl and then he'll swerve her and it's like funny or whatever. This guy in this 60-second clip had to have had at least 20 girls going to kiss him. It's like, this is how many people are just willing to do this. And it's like this is crazy, because also the rates of people cheating on each other is also going up, and it's like people get too drunk, or maybe they're not even intoxicated, and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just one night, it doesn't mean anything. It does mean something. And we're a lot of the time willing to put the immediately pleasurable act over what is purposeful and what's going to serve us in the long term. And my whole viewpoint with the whole dating culture that's going on is nobody's getting what they want, right? So like, I would argue that guys get more out of hookup culture than girls do. And to preface that, I give the example of a lot of guys will, let's say a guy sleeps with a girl, and then the next day he goes to his friend. He's like, oh yeah, this just happened. They're all like cheering him on and whatever. And then a girl does it and she just feels shameful after. Right. And I've seen girls in my personal life, people posting things and people saying things of girls just feeling bad after it. And there is definitely a degree of it of society shames women more for doing it, less than men. But the point is, it's not good for anybody in terms of society's standing and what's good for us. And obviously, like I was saying before, the more people we hook up with before we get married, the less of the chance it's easier to stay settled down. Because, I mean, think about it. If you're getting with 10 people on a regular basis, and then, you are approached with a girl who cares about you for you and, tries to start a relationship with you, it might be a little bit tough for you to set. It was tough for me at a point, right? That I had this personal experience where I was getting with a few people, and there was someone in my life that I was honest with her about everything, but she wanted something more, and I was just kind of like, nah, like I have all this, why would I do that? And now it's like, oh, like, dude, what are you doing, right? And it's like, it's so interesting because especially because of the way the societal norms are, it's so easy to get sucked into all of this. And it's like people are just like, well, I just had to get my partying phase out there and I just had to get it out of me, out of my system. And it's like, you didn't have to. It was largely influenced by other people and, people that tell you to do things, yes. But that's where like our consciousness comes in, and we're human beings and we can think for ourselves, and that's where we need to develop that skill. I mean, I've literally, I remember this one girl that I was hooking up with one time, and I was literally having the conversation with her about how she told me, and whether this is true or not, of course I can't fully tell, but she was telling me how she literally doesn't even enjoy like hookup culture. She's just doing it because all of her friends do it, and it's just like how
Bingo.
many people are a part of this cohort where it's like we're all just doing it. And then also there's the perspective of, well, so some girls have this philosophy that, well, if I sleep with him then he'll like me. That's not true.
That is not true.
The love bonding hormone oxytocin gets released among men and women, but a lot more from women during sexual activity than it does for men. And so if now men and women are doing both things wrong, and so I'll get to the men in a second. But for women, for example, I'm not saying every girl does this. Tons of girls don't do this. I'm saying for the girls who do, which is a bunch of them, if you stop having sex with a guy on the first time you hang out with him, maybe the guy will realize that there's something more to you, or maybe he shouldn't just go after a girl for sex, or maybe, he should, spend some time with you, and, just get to know you as a person, and then maybe things will develop from there. And then on the guy's side, it's like you gotta change your perspective of, instead of thinking with your dick, you gotta think with your head. And it's like, well, is this girl actually going to be good for me? Right? What are her values? Does she have any hobbies? Does she have any goals for herself? What does she even want to do with her life? Because there's been plenty of times where I've talked to a girl and it's like, hey, what do you do for fun? They go, I like to watch Netflix. That's fine, but you're boring. Right? And so, like, for me, for example, I want a girl who, she likes to go to the gym. She likes self-development. She likes purposeful things in life. If there's a girl that I start, seeing that just parties all the time, doesn't matter how attractive she is. She's going out the door. Right? But a lot of guys don't have this philosophy. They have the philosophy of, well, she's attractive, so I'll be in a relationship with her. That's the stupidest decision you can ever make. Now, so does attractiveness play a role? 100%. If you're not physically attracted to someone, it's going to be difficult to be in a romantic partnership with them. But then there is also the phenomenon where if you spend time with someone, at first glance, you might not have found them very attractive, but over time, you do. And this has happened for me in multiple occurrences where it's like I first meet a girl and I'm like, oh, she's not that physically attractive. And then I spend time with her and I get to know her personality, what her goals are for herself and what she's doing with her life. And then not only do I find her more mentally attractive, but quite literally her physical attractiveness is higher for me. And I now quite literally find her more physically attractive.
Complete package. And I want to add this into it. Masculinity definitely plays a role in it with us men. Like we have to we can't be a part, like how you said, like, with one of your earlier stories, like the girl saying, oh, I see all my friends doing it. Us men, like, we tend to have like that same mistake. I remember at one point I saw my friends like they go to the club, get a chick, and I'm like, damn, like I want to do the same. But then it's just like, well, wait a second, like I don't have to. There is no contractual agreement like in a sports deal, 4-year max deal. If you don't make out with this many people, like no. And I think it's unfortunate that this is, the times we live in. And it sucks. And I love how you said it, because I remember one of my best friends who's a girl, she said that to me one time because I was thinking about, going to meet up with this one girl. She was like, hey, don't think with your dick, think for your brain. Humbled the shit out of me. I was like, damn, well, what the fuck do you mean? And then I'm just like, well, wait a second. There's a reason why she's saying this, because she doesn't want to see me get hurt, and she doesn't want to see me, like just have high expectations. And that's what's sad. And that's what's really sad. And you really hope that sometime soon, like how we mentioned earlier with the previous topic, compassion, we can just start thinking with ourselves more. And it seems like the culture we live in is, if you don't do this, then you're not cool. If you don't have a pair of Gucci slides, then you're not fly enough. Well, my guy, those Gucci slides you're wearing, it costs about the same amount as me fucking wearing some Skechers. It is factual. It is factual. It's not opinion. It is factual. I wish I had like a little like cool video effect. I probably added to the video. Facts. But you know, but back to back to the relationship scene. Not to go off track. With hookup culture, it's just crazy. And nowadays, and I mentioned earlier, like the reason why I mentioned dating apps like nowadays, like they might as well not even call it dating apps. Like seriously, it is such false advertisement. I wish I could say bullshit in 5 different languages. It's bullshit. It is complete bullshit. There's no such thing as a dating app. There is a hookup app. There is no dating app. You don't go on Tinder to make a long-term relationship. That's just not saying that it's impossible, but 99.9% of the time, it is not going to turn out that way. It's going to be a one-night stand, maybe even 2-night stand. Maybe nowadays, how would they say, friends with benefits. It's dumb. It's stupid. There's no logic behind it. And us men, we have to like now think of it from a more masculine perspective. Like, hey, we need to look for girls that have, bigger goals in life and, better ideology. And same for women. Like, I want women to, feel the same for us guys. I don't want you to go after a guy, off the streets, J off Central or fucking, some guy that looks ghetto. Like, no, just go after the right guy and they will do the right things for you. That's factual. That's not opinion. And I'm glad we see eye to eye on that. And out of all the things in today's time that we discussed about, the hookup culture gets me concerned the most. Like how you said, the divorce rates and all that. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're in the top 5 of like, the highest divorce rates in the world. And not even just that, like, I just think it's only going to get worse because of now how everything is easily accessible. I can't even imagine where it's going to go. And, and like how you said earlier, religion aside and all that, just to bring it back just a little bit briefly, like Christianity, Judaism, and me being a Muslim, it's all the same. Like we cannot, have sex before marriage. We just can't. And now to put religion aside, there's a reason why all those religions said that. There's a reason behind it. When you actually put it to perspective, there is a reason why, because it has been scientifically proven with studies and clinical and with trials and such like that, that if you have sex before marriage multiple times, there is a stronger chance that you are not going to be with that person long term. It's just not going to happen. And I was going to ask, do you have any more thoughts before we wrap it up with that topic? Anything else?
I would say, it's the culture, right? And there's a lot of people who are indulged in it, right? But there are also people coming out of it, people not doing it anymore, people who have never done it, which is, obviously would probably be the most ideal partner in some cases. And you have to make an effort, right? And this might mean going up to people and just introducing yourself, right? And this is obviously something that's difficult to do and it takes time to develop, and you feel anxious about it. There's even times where I go up to girls still and I still feel a little bit anxious, right? I think it's a natural phenomenon, but you don't know until you try, right? And so you just got to talk to people, just feel them out, feel the vibe, maybe going on a date with someone, maybe hang out with someone, see how things go, right? And so there's a lot of people who are checking out of dating just because they're like, oh, there's no hope. And it's like, you're just shooting yourself in the foot at that point. You got to keep trying. And
Agreed.
Yeah. And so that's what I would say for people. And yeah, that's just, the culture is never fulfilling. I know in my experience, so at the time of us recording this, my last partnership that ended around 6-7 months ago, I haven't gotten with anyone since then, and I don't really plan on. But before that partnership with her was when some of this stuff was going on, and the last few people that like I hooked up with, I just, similar to the experience I was referencing with my friend, it wasn't enjoyable, and so I started to kiss someone, and while we're kissing, I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? I'm not even enjoying this. And so it's just like, I can't do this anymore. And so from my standpoint now, I cannot kiss someone that I don't care about. It it can't feel good. And so, point is, still make an effort to go talk to people. There's people out there who aren't, so wrapped up in this stuff anymore. And focus on yourself as well. Like, focus on personal development, focus on your goals, and you naturally attract pretty cool people into your life when you start doing that stuff.
I agree, man. I agree. And another thing, one last thing I want to add before we wrap it up. One last thing. Agree with everything you said. Going out, finding, just doing the right, like going out the right way for girls, like taking them out, to like a little coffee date, like a little coffee sit down, not necessarily like, oh, let's go to this bar together. Let's go meet up. Like, no, like go over some coffee, maybe, go to the gym together, maybe go on a walk, through like a local park, forest preserve, something like that, something more like beneficial. And to all of us men out there, if we want, like women that like, want like more out of men, then we also have to do work on our part, on ourselves. So that means us eating healthier, going to the gym, making ourselves more presentable. Because if we come out looking like some fuck boy, you could say, or like cocky kid, then, or a cocky, man, then, that's narcissistic. We're not gonna really attract the right one necessarily. So we also have to do our part on our end to, find that right person. And I just wanted to say this was an amazing episode, Bradley. I truly enjoyed sitting down with you. I hope one day soon I will be able to come on to your show, The Mighty Brad. Would you guys could, by the way, check out in the link in the description below on Spotify, show love to him on YouTube. Great content creator. I'm glad you got to come on to him. I'm glad we got to discuss some of the key things that's going on with today's society. Do you have any last words?
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you having me on the show today. It's been an absolute blast, and I hope the audience takes some knowledge from what you have said and what I have shared as well. And yeah, it's a great time.
Great time, Bradley. I'll see you around, guys. We'll see you in the deep end next time. Maybe you might see me on his show. Hopefully sometime soon. We'll see you guys sometime soon. Take care and peace. Thank you.
All right.